right, we're back for another great episode. Me and Coach D, we forgot that you were on Central Time, so we 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 started podcast part one. We talked a lot about actually some of the stuff in college football, and then we were like, oh, okay, yes, that's what it was. Pause, restart, get ready to go. So I'm here, Coach Schuman, with Coach D as normal, and we have the great Coach Don Beebe with us, head coach, Aurora University football, Division III program. But we all know him from his days as a Buffalo Bill. He's very well known for being one of the fastest guys in the NFL back when he was playing, a fantastic player, receiver, would make plays all over the field with his hands and his feet, and was just a great athlete. He ran House of Speed for, I guess, 20 plus years, was coaching as well during that time, but really dived into college football at Aurora. And we're so excited to have him on. He's a guy that's kind of dived into each one of the worlds that we kind of cover on this show.
Yeah, Coach, you're a rarity that you've hit on all of these three things that we kind of really like.
Yes,
it's the Mecca.
Yes, so he was obviously a pro player himself. He was in that world of combines and showcases and speed in the high school recruiting space for a long time. And obviously as a head coach. And it's funny because we've had quite a few guys, and you probably, because you're in Illinois, probably know who he is. A lot of Tony Holler disciples on talking about speed, and we've had Tony on as well a couple times. So it's interesting because when we were back doing it, like a lot of things that Tony's talking about is kind of expanding on and improving a lot of those core elements that you first touched on way back in the day, and it's now even honed in even more. Just listen to the way they talk and the way they approach it. But it's very, very interesting because I remember you as one of the first original gurus in that space.
Yeah. Well, it was. We started in '98. Dr. Schuman, myself. Dr. Schuman was training me when I was in Packers. So at the end of the career, I mean, I'll never forget.
Coach, your volume is we're not able to hear you. Let's see something.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that, guys.
No, you're good.
Yeah, so what I was saying is I remember when I retired from the Packers, and Dr. Schuman landed up being my partner in House of Speed. He was training me, and I just remember one day I said I knew I wanted to be a part of young adults and athletics and just mentoring through sports. And in '98, nobody was doing speed training and sports performance training and combines and stuff like that. And we were at a Chinese restaurant at lunch, and I looked at him. I said, "Hey, listen, why don't we do what you're doing with me? Nobody's doing this. I mean, it'll be a great way to impact young adults and train them and make them faster and more explosive and all those things." Right. And God, he loved the idea because he'd been doing that for a long time already. And I went home, told my wife, and we started coming up with a name. And I said, man, I really like the House of Pain, man. When I was, the old Astrodome, man, the House of Pain, and she call it House of Speed. So she has all naming rights to the business. So
smart though, Coach, smart.
Yeah. And the funny thing about it is when we started getting into combines, it wasn't really right away. I mean, we were years into training at House of Speed. And then it blossomed into national 3-day speed camps and stuff of that nature, from New York to Salt Lake City, I think was the farthest west we ever went. But Coach Schuman was a guy that we looked into and said, this guy has got what a great concept. So you were actually in the combine business. I think you might have been the first ever. Okay. Yeah. And we looked into it and said, man, what a great concept to start doing combines. And we started doing one here in Aurora, and it blew up huge. I mean, it was so big. It was a 1-day event, and it was huge. We actually had to close off. I couldn't take any more kids. We'd have over 50 scouts there from, NCAA Division I, II, and III schools. Division I don't think could come. I think it was illegal for them, but
right.
And so we started doing these things, and I didn't want to go national like you were, to be honest with you, because I just didn't want to travel. I was tired of traveling. So we just did one locally every year, and it was just a massive success. But we got the idea from you, just so you know.
So did half of America now at this point.
Exactly. But the thing is, like anything, when you're doing something well and you're doing it good,
right,
and you got a lot of feedback, positive feedback, because we did some research on you and the feedback that you were getting from moms and dads and kids and everything of that nature. Because that's what we're all about.
Right.
It's for me, it's not about the image, it's not about the money, it's just about impacting people. And through sports, I think it's a great way. And coaching is just at a whole nother level. Hence why I did House of Speed for 6 years. And in 2003, 2004, I really felt led to get involved into coaching because it wasn't enough for me at the intimate level to really get to know a person when you can only meet them one time at a camp or a combine or train them once a week, was great, or twice a week, but I wanted to be involved every day.
Yep.
And so that's why I got into coaching. And like you said, I coached for 14 years at the high school level. Then I became an empty nester because I knew the most important role for me was coaching my kids. And that's just being around them. Doesn't mean I'm coaching them, just being around them. And I couldn't do it at the high level NFL or FBS because, I just couldn't do it and be a father. That's just me. Some get away with it. I just couldn't see me doing it. And then after I became an empty nester, that's when I left in 2018, took a whole year off. I wanted to travel around, see where the Lord was leading me in the sense of coaching at the higher level. I didn't have any idea what level that would be. And then Aurora just reached out to me, a buddy that I knew that was the sports and performance guy here at AU reached out to me, and I trained him when he was a little kid. So I'd known this kid for 15, 16 years, right? He reaches out and said, man, would you ever consider coming to AU? I text back, I said, I never thought about it. That thought never entered my mind. And I grew up in Aurora, and I've always been in Aurora. And he goes, well, the AD wants to go to lunch with you. I'm all for sitting down and exploring. Always. I always want to hear somebody, right? Because I don't know. And I went into that lunch thinking there's no way I'm taking this job. I came out of that lunch 2 hours later thinking, man, this is intriguing. It reminded me a lot of Aurora Christian, that I always say is the Bad News Bears on steroids, meaning in 04, Aurora, believe this or not, guys, in 04, Aurora Christian had no weight room. Okay, they had no football field, so all road games. There were 2 teams in their own conference they had never beaten in the history of their school. Okay, and there were 17 kids in the whole program, from freshmen through sophomores or seniors. And I was like, the initial thought was like, let's go. And then my second thought was like, what am I doing? But I was intrigued. Well, Aurora, to a different level, being a college program, wasn't quite that, but had a lot of similarities. Just very average, kind of going along the motions and not really training much in the off seasons and not earning things in life, and just things that I'm so against. And I'm sorry I'm talking so long here, but
no, that's what we have you here for.
No, you're good, Coach. You're good.
And so I just felt inspired to take this AU job, and I got into it in that first year, guys. I fell in love with it. Now going into my 7th year, I don't see me leaving. I think I'll coach. I got 6 more on my contract. I think I'll coach 6 more here and then take a year at a time, and we'll see. But as long as I'm healthy, guys, I don't see me giving up coaching. I'm not in coaching to win football games. I'm not in coaching for image or money and things that we've already talked about or I've said. I'm in to mentor young men. And what a great avenue to be able to do that then at the Division III level too. Man, I'm so glad I chose this level, especially now. That was 6 years ago. So NIL and transfer portal weren't even around 6 years ago. Now it's like on your doorstep. I don't have to deal with it much at all. And I'm glad I don't, because I would struggle. I'm a blue collar guy, and I would struggle with all we got to talk about is money. Yeah, that's not me. If that comes to the Division III level, guys, just so you know, I'm out. Just so you know, I'm out.
Well, it has in some place. I don't know about NIL. Obviously, transfer portal has, but
a little bit.
but a little bit.
And we've talked to some guys and how they handle it, right? So it's really, I think, Dave, like, and I think
how you handle it.
Yeah, yep. It's real. Each coach is kind of individually doing it their own type of way, because I don't think anybody really knows how to handle it, right? There's no textbook because it's never been done before. So everybody, plus I think there's a lot more that goes along with each school individually in terms of what they're kind of allowed to do above what they think they could do with their program, right? In terms of that. Because I think it's Division
D3, I think, right?
Right. That's what I'm referring to, right? Like this is D3 specific in terms of you're dealing with a lot more of the, the academic side of it, where, you just can't take anybody because, they're going to come play football, right? Like they got to be able to back it up a little bit. No offense to the big guys. Like we know how that level works when it comes to that. Right. And we've talked to some guys, in terms of high level academics, everyone kind of handles it and is, I think moving forward, everybody's going to try a certain type of way. And I don't know if anybody will ever figure it out. I just think some are going to be more successful at whatever works for them, I think is really the main thing that we're kind of getting from everyone.
Yeah. I might have a little bit of different approach with the whole transfer portal thing in the NIL than some guys. Maybe not. I mean, you got to go with my age is older. Okay, so I'm a blue collar guy, and so I think blue collar. But that doesn't mean that I can't somewhat, let's say, go along with what is going on in the terms of today's world in the sports. But I never want to get away from teaching what's right.
Yep.
Okay, and what's right is character. There's many different views on this, okay, but I'm a firm believer there's a right and there's a wrong of trust, commitment, dedication, loyalty, things that we've thrown out back in the when I grew up in the 70s and 80s. That is just, boy, it's different today, because it truly starts at the dinner table. It starts in the car ride homes from the games in middle school, grade school, and in high school. And if I can be in some way, even at a college level personality, a young man who's on his own now, and he's wearing his big boy pants and he's making big boy decisions now. He's no longer, around sometimes what I would call a distraction in a way of teaching character. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of really good people out there doing it still the right way, but boy, you're seeing a lot more the other way now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So to get to my viewpoints on some of this, the NIL, let's talk about the NIL. We don't deal with that much at the D3 level. However, I have no problem with an athlete. My initial reaction was to it like, oh man, this is crazy. What are we doing paying these guys? The more I thought about it, listen, that money's going somewhere.
Yep.
Okay, it's going somewhere. So I really, truly believe today that, the athletes should get something for his image and what is being done. Now in education, certainly do it. But as always, okay, we bloviate and make it so much worse than really it should have been. And it should have been limited. Okay, these guys should be making more than they would be at a pro level. When a college guy says to himself that I'd rather stay in college 1 more year or 2 more years because I can make more money, there's a problem with that. Okay. So they should be paid, but a limited amount. And I think that they should all be paid somewhat equally to a certain degree. Okay. If the quarterback's image is being used more than another person's, then okay, maybe he makes a little bit more. I have no problem with that either. But they should put limited on that big time. Right. Okay. Now the transfer portal, that's a whole nother animal. I think it's an absolute joke. I'm sorry. If some disagree, hey, we're all going to disagree and agree upon things. It's a joke. It's teaching young men the wrong way to approach relationships, responsibility, trust, loyalty, all the things that we said. Do we deal with it? Yeah, very limited. We have dealt with it. Here's my view on it. One, as a coach, create an atmosphere that's going to be really hard for him to leave. Create a culture, okay, that loves that kid no matter who he is, and treat him like a son, okay? And there's certain ways to do that and certain ways not to do that. But treat him like it's going to be really hard for him to leave. Okay. Teach them and talk to them. What decisions are you truly making? Because they're hearing it from the other end. I literally had a person, and I'm not going to certainly name names here. I had a kid that mom thought he could play at an FBS school that was a top 5 school in the country. Okay. At that time when we were having this conversation, sophomore. And I was like, listen, if you were at that level talent-wise 2 years ago when you were in high school, you would be somewhere already. Okay, if you were that good, you'd be somewhere. Well, I got overlooked. Okay, they're going to find you. If you're that good, they'll find you. They found me in Shadron. Now that was the next level, but they found me in Shadron, which is the end of the earth. Okay, it's nowhere. Okay, they'll find you if you're that good. So to try to talk sense into him didn't register. Okay? And so what happened was, like it always happens, they'll go from one D3 program to another D3 program, or never play again. Some put themselves in a portal and never get picked up again. So I always tell athletes, you should go where you really fit into the culture. You love going to practice. You love the game days. You love the guys. Because it's not about winning at all. I truly believe you want to be on a team that is winning, because nobody likes to lose. Okay, so go to a winning program, sure, because they're probably doing something right in the culture fact of things. I've always said talent doesn't win and X's and O's don't win. It doesn't. What wins is culture. What wins is character. What wins is chemistry. And when you get that, you're going to win more than you're going to lose. Now, if you have talent to go with it, now you're probably got a chance to win it all, right? So go somewhere where you have a chance, but it's not about winning it, guys. It's about the journey. All the great teams that I was on, and the Buffalo Bills and the Green Bay Packers, and even the high school the teams that I coached in high school that won state championships. It's like, it wasn't about the game itself, even though it was great. It was a great moment. I don't remember those as much as I remember the journey. Right. The times just spending off the field and just going bowling or playing backgammon with the guys and at lunchtime before we went to practice, in Green Bay or Buffalo, just spending time with each other. And in the moments of great games, and you pull it out and you achieve greatness in the game, it's about the relationships that I miss. It's about the relationships that I continue to try to create for these players that go through their college experience. And if they don't remember them in a fond way, I didn't do my job. And you could do that even losing. I really do. Right. Because only one can win it. So that means everybody else is a loser. Well, that's kind of a stupid way of looking at it. No, winners are not defined by losses and wins. Winners are defined about the journey, how they go about every day to create the ability to win it all. That's what a winner is. They wake up every day and say to themselves, I'm getting better today. And that's what I do as a coach. And I try to hopefully teach young men to do that, because that's what brings me peace and joy outside my faith. Obviously does that, but it's the only way to approach life for myself. That's why I love this level. We don't deal with transfer portal that much. And when we do, and this is the last thought on this, is if I find out a guy that is talking about transfer portal and it's during the year, I'll bring him in my office, and I'll ask him questions that will bring it out of him. And if that is the true case, then I'll tell him, I said, listen, I love you, buddy. I said, but AU's not your program. I want guys that are all in. Yeah. Because all in wins. All in wins in the off season. Every day you got to get up at 5 a.m. and go work out. All in works. That's what wins. If you're thinking about going somewhere else, you're not all in. And as much as I love that kid, he's no longer AU material in my mind. Mm-hmm.
That's your right. And that's your right as a head coach to run a program the way you want. And I guess I'm the young guy on this show right now, but look, I was in this same boat you were, coach. Like, that's how I was. High school program was a traditional program, like all in or not. Even college, it was the same way. I didn't deal with any of this stuff, transfer portal, whatever. I was the same thing as you. Like, I played at a small school went to whatever opportunity that I had to play ball, and just would have never thought to jump or leave that program. Even when I went from being the guy to another one of the guys, it was, I'm going to work my ass off. I'm going to bust my ass to get on the travel squad. I'm going to work my way up through special teams. I wasn't going to go find another program that was going to hand me something. That's just not how I was programmed, right? But this generation's very different. They're from the they're the now generation. They've been given access to everything immediately. Not that they haven't, not that they wouldn't work for it. That's just not how they were brought up. It was, given to them, these opportunities, the trophy generation of second place still gets something, where it was win or that was it when I was growing up, and how, it used to be. So I think it's a little different in the way that they, their viewpoints on things, and it's not really their fault. It's whoever raised them, because that's just how it was, or that's how it is now,
Yeah. What winners do? Winners outwork and outlast. They do. And it's funny when I tell these to the incoming freshmen every year at the parent meeting, the night they're dropping their kid off. And I tell them this, I said, winners will outwork and outlast. I said, as you sit here in your freshman class today, there might be 10 wideouts in that class. I said, there might be 2 or 3 of you in 4 years left. I said, those are guys are probably going to be playing because they outworked, they stood the ground, and they did that. Let me just add this, is you got to ask yourself as a coach, why are you coaching?
Right.
Why are you coaching? Because if it's not about mentoring young men or women, then get out of coaching. Okay. Because if it truly is about mentoring, okay, which that's what the profession really is, to be honest with you. It's a great mentor, and what a great way to be able to do it. And then sports, if it's not about that, okay, then the transfer portal, you look at the transfer portal, a kid's going to be at your school for a year or 2, and then he's going to leave. Well, how do you mentor that? It takes years. Yeah. It takes years to mentor a person, and you got 4 years. And boy, I've seen amazing transformations from freshman year to senior year, because it takes time, okay, to develop confidence in themselves, just spirituality, if that's their thing, or just showing up and working hard and earning things in life. Those are things that takes years and years to develop. So to me, that's why I would get out of coaching. If I had 20 guys leave my program every year.
Oh, could you imagine? I would lose my mind.
I can't do it. I couldn't mentor. I was talking to a really good friend of mine who's in FBS school yesterday for a long time. And
you played shrink, huh, Coach? You played shrink?
Yeah, without mentioning names in school. Yeah, he's frustrated, and I hear it all the time. It's just like, gosh, Beebs, I got this guy, I love him to death, and then he just takes off on me, after a year, maybe 2. And then when I got to bring in a new guy, and then we just got a guy from this other school without mentioning, and and he's running from something, and he's coming over here, whether we're paying him a little bit more money, or he hated the coach there and it wasn't going well, or he wasn't the guy, and so we're going to go somewhere else and be the guy. Kids don't understand the odds of doing that, and it just teaches them when they get out in the real workforce. Welcome to life, boys, and it's going to be a slap in their face, So I don't know. The transfer portal thing is just, I'll never be a proponent of it. I'll never be on a committee and say, hey, let's further this, make this better. No, let's eliminate it. How's that? And do whatever we can to get rid of it.
And what it creates is a transactional relationship in all areas, meaning player to coach, coach to player, everyone involved in the process. And that is very, very difficult to manufacture long-term success. You don't have to, at the higher levels, you don't have to look any further than Florida State, right? In the championship top 5 team one year, next year wins 1 game, right? So that's not going to happen in every program, but that's what the transactional nature can create for situations. So you say to yourself, is that coach a good coach or a bad coach? You don't even know if he's a good coach or a bad coach. It's really who does he have this year versus who does he have next year? There's no development.
Yep.
So, and that's the case in a lot of cases and at the highest level. Division III is the last place, in my opinion, that has an opportunity to really have long-term development of players that are there because of the nature of it. I mean, for lack of a better word, it's the lowest level of college football. And what basically ends up happening is those kids that are playing there want to play football. There is no money per se in Division III. I mean, I guess there could be some places that are given, a couple bucks here and there, but for the most part, there's little to no money as far as other than getting academic money or that kind of stuff. And that allows it in this kind of crazy world of everything to be the last place where you can actually develop players. And I think that's a unique situation. Now, in the long run, who knows? Because as what's happened with what, to your point with the, with both the combination of NIL and transfer portal combined, which makes it really, really explosive. Like one in itself is difficult enough. Together,
you're doubling down.
Is craziness. But in the long run, who knows what happens down the line in Division III as people start to get creative and certain things. But as of now, it's still a place that you could really kind of develop guys and give them an opportunity to develop. And you might lose a guy or two here and there, like if some kid who becomes so exceptional and the high level schools. But for the most part, you're going to have, I would say, you have the opportunity to really do a good job and keep the majority of the roster intact for a long period of time. Whereas I think at other levels, it is like purely transactional. Even if you're in the in-between levels, like Division II is really in FCS is kind of an in-between level, right? So you're going to have guys going up and down, up and down, up and down all day long. Division I level, you're going to have guys going lateral and down, right? So it's whereas Division III, those guys are there. There's only one place they can go, it up. And if they went up, it's really because you've done such a great job. Really, that's what it really is. You've done such a great job in helping him develop that maybe his graduate year he goes somewhere or something like that. And and that's almost like a in a back doorway, like a tribute to how well you developed them, because there is no lower level. It can only go it can only go up. And I think the kids that come there to Aurora, obviously the way that you're running it, and other places in Division III, for the most part, for really the right reasons. And the last thing I think is really interesting, because I think you brought up the point about, and so did Derek, about culture and everything. One of the things about, I think what's so important about that you talked about the journey versus this kind of a win now. Like the journey produces wins, not success, not the win now thing. I see it all over the place, that from the youth level, because my son's a 9-year-old, to the high school and college level, the people that are focused solely on win at all costs create a toxic culture that they may win at some points in the short run, and but you're going to have lots of transactional relationships, lots of people upset with you for really the wrong reasons, because you brought in people for the wrong reasons, and even the people that have great success will never attribute it to what you're doing. They'll attribute it to themselves. And that's what I think happens in a win it all kind of situation. They don't attribute it to development. They attribute it, I was good, coach brought me over because I was good, and it's because of me only, type of deal. And I think that's the difference between the journey, where if you have success, you know why you had that success, whereas win now, win at all costs, nobody really knows exactly why you have success. The only thing you can attribute it to is that you brought in better Johnnies and Joes, and that's the only thing you attribute it to. And eventually you're not going to have all the best Johnny and Joes because some of them are going to go somewhere else. And then you have nothing at that point. Right. And I think that both you and Derek brought up great points on that. What do you, so besides getting with the transfer portal, like if you were to advise an FBS coach, because you obviously played at the highest level, right? And in the NFL, even though obviously there's a cap and everything, there's a transactional nature to the NFL, right? And you were a part of it. If you were to advise like higher level coaches, what would you say? Hey, listen, if you want to get some level of a journey in your program, that you would do it X, or is it impossible?
Yeah. Well, I would start with this. There's several things I want to add to all this.
Sure.
Well, I'll try to answer your question first. Is you really got to get to know the kid in recruiting. Listen, you're not just interviewing. Yeah, you're not just interviewing the kid. You want to sit down with mom and dad, the whole family, go to the house, or if they come on campus, that they're all in your office, just one-on-one instead of a group setting. I really watched their film, okay, in the sense of when they make a big sack or a big touchdown or whatever it is, how, are they drawing attention to themselves, or are they humbling their approach like a Walter Payton or somebody like that, right? But more importantly, what I like to do is I'll watch somebody else's film from the same high school, typically the same position. I'll watch their highlight video knowing I'm going to see their best, but I'm not looking at them. I'm looking at the guy I'm recruiting. I want to see if that guy generally has excitement for somebody else's success. When he's on the sideline, if I can watch him, if he's on the sideline or whatever, so I get the game film. Mm-hmm. And how's he reacting on the sideline? Okay, you can tell. I mean, it's pretty glaring sometimes. We are like, there ain't no way that kid's coming to our program. I'll never forget, I had a kid first year out, 2019 here at AU. And I had a kid, again, without mentioning names, I had to be careful about this, stud running back, okay, in one of the top high school states for high school football in the country. Okay, if you had to say this probably be number one state. And he was a top 20 running back. Dad calls me or emails me first and says, man, I really want my son to play for you. He has offers, but I want him to play for you. Okay. And I knew this guy, the dad. And so I watched his film and I was like, holy smokes, this cat, I mean, he's a day one starter. Okay. I mean, this guy's going to be a phenomenal player for us. He's Barry Sanders, really. This is what he looked like. And so I emailed back and said, man, would you guys be willing to come up to Aurora? I want to sit down and meet the kid. 2 weeks later, they're in my office. Kid walks into my office, hoodie on, earpiece in his ear, barely shook my hand, barely would make eye contact. If you knew my office setup, I have 3 chairs in front of my desk, and I have one over in the far right corner. The only recruit in 6 years now of recruiting, 7 years now of recruiting, that sat in that chair on the other side of my office was this kid. Everybody else sits right in front of me, right, with the parents typically. I couldn't get any answers out. It's all one-word answers. Slouched in his chair, acted like he didn't want to be there. I couldn't wait to get out of that interview. So usually my interviews go for 45 minutes to an hour. This one lasted 20 minutes. As soon as he walked out the door, very nice to him. Thanks for coming, guys. I called the head of recruiting. I said, there's no way that kid's coming here. Talent doesn't win. Chemistry does. Okay, and I can give you many examples of NFL players without mentioning names, how they just completely dismantle teams because they're me guys. So
it's funny you bring that up. We were just talking about that, Coach. I'm not trying to get – I want you to keep going, please. But we were just talking about that makeup of how the wrong piece – like, for example, Florida State goes from undefeated to not winning games, right? Like, just by bringing in those couple pieces, which is a whole nother thing. Go ahead, Coach. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. So I would start with the interview process. You can find out in an hour conversation and as you're recruiting the kid if he's a high character person. Okay. If he's a high character person, chances of them leaving is less. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen because it does. Okay. But you start to form a relationship better with the high character person and how they were raised. I mean, listen, as Derek was even saying, my dad raised me. Listen, there was no way halfway through a season or at the end of the year that you were going to do what?
Yeah.
Transfer portal. No, that wasn't going to happen. Okay. Now I also want to touch on this because I know there's people going to be listening to this and going to say, come on, coach, you've never taken a kid from the transfer portal. You know that's right. So the answer is yes, I have. Okay. I don't do a lot of it. I don't dabble into it. But when you're now losing a few kids every year because of the portal, and it's not a ton for us. I mean, we had, I think, 4 this year leave. Okay. But my whole philosophy in this is how, because you have to somewhat replace certain guys. However, what I will do is this: is I evaluate every position. Can I win a national title with that kid at that position? That's how I evaluate it. I don't care what position it is, including kicker, punter, whatever. Can I win a national title? Is that kid good enough to help us win a national title? If he's not, then I need to somewhat upgrade it. Okay, because coaches, we're always trying to upgrade and we're always trying to bring in guys. That's why in the draft, don't draft for a position. Typically, draft the talent of the kid, and in the best player available. Right. So I look at it as, if a guy comes to me, for example, and I'll mention this kid's name because he's on our team now, Trey Erweiler. Trey Erweiler came to us from Northern Illinois. He was at Northern Illinois 3 years, just had a bad experience, felt like he was not going to be able to get in and play. Extremely talented young man. And he came to me and wanted to transfer to AU. He's a local area here kid. And it was somewhat of a need of ours, but man, I really put him through the grind. I asked him a lot of tough questions. Okay. And if those questions, to give you a little bit of an idea, why are you transferring? I want to know why you transferring. If it's the wrong answer there, not a fit for me. Okay. I didn't like the coach. I wasn't playing. Those are bad answers. Okay. So I'll really get to know that kid. Fell in love with the kid after an hour with his dad in knowing him and such. And it was a good fit for us because when he came in day one, I mean, he was unselfish. He wasn't acting like he owned the place because he came from Northern Illinois. Just fit in real well with the guys, chemistry. Guys loved him. They voted him captain this year. I mean, that's what they think of Trey Erweiler. So those are every guy so far that we've brought into the transfer portal, which has not been a lot, have been those high character men that have fit into what the culture that we're doing. You start to bring in guys just because you already had that guy at that position, then you bring in a Division I player, and then he takes the position of the guy that you already believe you can win a national title with. Oh, you're going to dismantle your team. You're going to dismantle your team because you're going to lose the trust of your guys towards you. And as a coach, I want to earn their trust. I don't expect it or tell them that, hey, listen, you respect my opinion. That's right. Because listen, no kid. I have this saying, nobody wants to know what you know until they know how much you care.
That's right.
I mean, think about that. I mean, they want to know if you care, they're all in with you and they'll trust you. And then you got to live that out. So bringing in a bunch of guys every year in the transfer portal would be dismantling the team in my opinion. One here and there. Now I'll go to another on top of this. And this was mentioned a little bit earlier. Do you help guys in the transfer portal? Matter of fact, I had a mom in a recruiting meeting the other day. Well, what are you going to do for my son after his freshman year, sophomore year, and he's really playing well in AU, and how are you going to help him in the transfer portal? And I said, don't take this wrong, ma'am. I said, don't come to AU. It's not your place. I'm not going to help unless there's circumstances that kid needs help. For example, 2 years ago, we lost our starting corner, great player, high-level athlete. Could run, great length. Well, he ran into financial issues, and it was legit. He wasn't lying to me. It was legit. And so we helped him find a home. And he landed up going to an FCS school and started at corner for that FCS school. And now he's going through his pro day right now. And hopefully he sticks on with the team and gets on with the team. He's that talented. So he'll get a chance. So I helped him because he had circumstances that were out of his control. He didn't want to leave. He loved it here. We had a kid 2 years ago as well, same year. Came to me in my office, star defensive player, said, Coach, I'm thinking about putting in the portal. And I said, why? He says, well, God, Coach, I just want to know what it feels like to play in front of 80,000 people. I said, well, I can't give you that. Okay. He says, before my career's over, I just want to know what it's like to run out of Notre Dame or run out of Clemson or whatever. I said, hey, that's something I can't give you. So because of my relationship that I had with him already with this kid for 3 years, because he had COVID, he had 2 years left. But I said, you know what? Yeah, I'll help you. You're a great kid. I love you. If that's what you truly want, and that's the reason you want, let's see what we can find. Well, he didn't get in the FBS. He had, I want to say, 4 or 5 FCS, full ride scholarships. He chose to stay. Okay. He landed up paying, I want to say how much it was, but he landed up paying for his school the last 2 years, and he could have left. But that's because of the culture. If he didn't have respect for me or didn't like the guys or the culture or winning or whatever, he'd have been so fast out this door, everybody's heads would be spinning. That's why I think when you create things like that, guys will stay. It's not going to bat 1,000. Okay. But when it's all about them and it's selfishness and they're not liking what we're doing, or they think they can find it better and they think they're a Division I player, or whatever that is, and it's all selfish stuff. Yeah. Good luck. And hardly ever do they go Division I. They'll go to another Division III school. And it just never works out, So, but there are circumstances that I'm willing to take a guy if I feel we need it to upgrade to win a national title, and he fits in character-wise. Okay. And then there's other instances that I'll help guys that are already on this team that fit into categories that are out of their control or something I just can't give them without being it money or image or, that stuff. So there are things that, that I'll do in that. So hopefully long answer to your question.
No, that makes a ton of sense.
Oh, it's perfect.
Yeah. I think that's a key thing. I mean, listen, I wish there were more coaches that thought the way that you do. I think these things would be handled a lot better in a lot of instances, but obviously that the coaching profession itself has changed too a lot in like who gets into it. Guys are getting into it literally for the money, so or potential for the money. And that changes a lot of things. And then obviously there are guys like you who are in it for the helping and mentoring of the coaching. And it's kind of like a strange meshed world that we have now in the coaching industry. Right.
Can I interject something there?
Yeah, sure.
It brought me, if a coach, I'll give you an illustration to self-check yourself. Okay. As a coach, what is your response when you got a high recruit, you love them and you really want them? What is your response when they go somewhere else?
Right.
That'll be a self-check for you. And I've seen some texts and emails
I like that
from players that land up coming here from other coaches and their response to them when they chose here. And I was like, yeah, that guy's not in it for mentoring young men. He's in it for himself. He's in it to win games. He's in it for whatever. But it's all selfishness. I'll be honest with you. And if that hits guys in the face right now, I don't care. It's right. My response, and some of them I have to pray first before I respond.
Right.
Because
hey, Coach, that's
okay. I'm not gonna lie. Listen, I'm just as ugly as other guys.
Everybody thinks. Yeah. Everybody. So the difference is, look, nobody's happy when they lose a recruit that they thought they might have or wanted to have. But it's having the self-control to understand what your mission is, right? And that's a big part of it. It's like, in New Jersey, when I was coaching for many years, I coached at a public school, and we would lose a lot of times the best player to a private school. And my whole thing was, even though I wasn't happy about it, doors always open. Yep. I wish you the best. You know what I mean? Was I happy that he wasn't coming to me? No. But Derek knows this to be true. 2 of these kids came back. It didn't work out for whatever reason where they were. They always had a relationship with me. That team, when those guys came back, it actually helped the team, and they ended up going to the state championship, right? And those kids were always great kids. But
and Dave, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna piggyback, and that's what I was gonna say, especially now in this world of transfer portal, when those guys go to that level, and they're not, it's all right, outliers, whatever. They're not gonna make it. They're not a level player. Keep that relationship, never burn a bridge. That kid's gonna come back now, and we've discussed this, right, Dave? Like that kid's gonna
that guy was great.
Or it's like, but he's going to come back. And if he comes back, he's going to have more of a fire lit under his ass to play better. Like, this guy knew exactly what he was doing, and I should have listened before. I'm going to go play harder for him, or I'm going to prove that I should have made it when I tried and didn't, but now I'm going to just come back here and work that much harder. So the never burn a bridge thing works both ways as a player and a coach. Because it's incredible. You see some of the responses that some of these guys are, just how they talk to student athletes in general. It's like, what are you thinking, right? It's really extremely just on a whole nother level of it. And and Dave's had great experiences with keeping those relationships with those guys. And now, hey, you now have an opportunity to come here, and I'm still all about you, buddy. You know?
One of my great mentors, Coach Levy.
God rest his soul.
Well, he's just the guy is the most humble Hall of Fame person I think I've ever been around. And you meet him on the street, you're just a person that he doesn't even know. I mean, he's always going to stop, shake your hand, sign whatever you want, sign, take a picture, whatever it is. And the guy's 99 years old.
It's crazy.
And I have a picture up in my office here where he just celebrated his 99th birthday this past September, October. I had a game up in Wisconsin, and dinner was at 6:00 at Harry Carey's in Chicago. And Andre Reed, Bruce Smith, Jim Kelly, Tasker, Thurman. I mean, there was 9 guys, I think, that were all flying in to have dinner with him and surprise him on his 99th birthday. So I literally, game was over. Post-game speech was, guys, I got to go because my coach needs me at this birthday party. And so I drove as fast as I could to get to downtown Chicago. I got there at 6:01. Okay, so I just made it, and to sing happy birthday for Coach Levy. Why do I bring him up? Is, did he not re-sign me? Yeah, he didn't re-sign me. In 1994. Going into the 5 season. But you know what? He did it in a way that he said, hey, Don, could you come up to my office? I want to talk to you. He did, it wasn't like through an email, or certainly we didn't have texting then, that's how people do it nowadays, which is so ridiculous.
Crazy.
You find out on the ESPN ticker.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's like, it's man to man, it's face to face. Right. And so he would bring me in and he said, Don, listen, I love you. And you've been great for us, man, for 6 years. He says, we've just decided as a staff to go in a younger way. Okay. We're going to draft some young guys and, kind of move things. We've moved out of the Super Bowl era pretty much now because we went to 4 in a row and it's kind of, everybody's getting old. And then I shook his hand and said, Coach, I appreciate that. And we're still very close today. Just talked to him last week. He still writes me handwritten letters. They're not emails, they're handwritten letters. Okay. Who does that? But a man of character. And I remember when I took this job, he was the first guy I wanted to pick his brain. And I tell you, I went downtown Chicago. We went to Harry Carey's again, my wife and Franny, his wife. And I'm ready to take notes, man. And I was like, because now I'm into recruiting and scouting, right? And never had to do that in high school. And I said, Coach, when you're looking at this guy or that position, this position, all this stuff, he goes, Donnie, he says, let me stop you there. And he goes, before you ever get to that, recruit 3 things. I said, I'm ready, man. I'm ready to write this down. He goes, recruit character, and character. If they don't have it, walk away. No matter how good they are, walk away. Because you're going to win a whole lot more games, okay? And it's going to save you a whole lot of heartache. And, it's funny because you look at back in those Bills teams, and they were full of guys of character. Now, you might say, well, you guys are known as the Big Green Bills in 1989. That's such hogwash. We were brothers that weren't getting along. Okay, but we loved each other. Okay, because Thurman Thomas and Bruce and all these Hall of Fame guys, man, they showed up every day for practice. Every day, they worked hard, man. I mean, you can't be 300-pound man like Bruce Smith and your body fat's under 10%. That guy trained hard. Yeah, I mean, he was just unblockable. but we all just got along, and we still get along. I mean, here we are 30 years, some years later, we're still getting together, celebrating the birthday party for our coach. Who does that, right? All your great teams in the history, going back to the originals, the Green Bay Packers of the 60s, and all the teams that had this, the Kansas City Chiefs have that now. Why? Because their leader, Andy Reid, is one of the highest character men I've ever known. He was a tight end coach when I was with the Packers. I sat right next to Andy for a couple of years, right next to him at every meeting, offensive meeting. That guy, one of the greatest men you'll ever know. I mean, I would put him in the Marv Levy category because that's why they win, is because of the culture that they have, not the talent.
Well, it's a thing where I can't remember who said it to me, but you want to have a bunch of people on your team that have character, not a bunch of people that are characters. That's a big thing, because there's a big difference between the people who carry themselves the right way and the ones that are trying to always grab attention for themselves as a player. And obviously you always want to have competitiveness, and you always want to have people, working to be their very best. Obviously it's a big part of it. To me, it's always this. It's like, if you're an athlete and you're competing, are you working to be your very best, right? It's not what someone else's best is. It's not, that person over there. It's, are you working to be your very best? Because that's what the team needs you to do. And those are the things that are really, really important, because it's always conflated with winning and losing, right? Like, I have to tell this to my son all the time. Guess what? You're going to lose. It's going to happen. No matter how good you are all the time. You could win 9,000 championships. You're still going to lose games. It's how you begin to handle those things that are key. The question always is, did you do your best?
Yep.
And if you lost, is there something that you could have done differently that could have helped you perform better? Okay. And if you did your best and you did everything you could, then the next thing is, sometimes someone is ahead of you and is a little bit better. So then the question then becomes, what can we do to improve your best that you could be on the level of that person, right? Is that possible? And then sometimes someone is just better than you, period, end of story. Like, so you have to figure out how to continue to improve yourself. Okay. And that's in multiple different areas, not just athletically. And it's an important thing, but a lot of it is not taught. And me and Derek see it all the time, because we run, a club, a 7-on-7 club, and we have a lot of great kids. I would say that we're one of there are other groups that are like that try to do it the right way, but it's littered with people doing it the wrong way. Yeah. And but when you play for us, we're like, this is why we want you to be a part of what we're doing. And if you want to be on another team because it doesn't fit that's okay with us. Like, we want you to figure out what's best for you. But this is how we kind of conduct it, right? And not that we don't try to win. We try to win. We've probably won as many tournaments as any great program, okay? But we try to make sure we have that. And our results are, we look at it, we say, hey, there in 4 years that we've been running this program, there's 40 plus kids that have gone on to play in college. Okay. Not that we are the person that put them in college, but for us, it looks like, and there are instances where we've helped guys, a lot of guys, but it's that we're bringing in the right people, because those kids are that colleges want to recruit. Those are kids that colleges want to bring into play. And I don't want to speak for Derek, but I think he agrees that and by the way, do we fail at it sometimes? Absolutely. We do fail at it. But that's what we're always trying to do. We're trying to get the right people around the right people to try and help them be the best they can. We fail at it at times, but we're constantly trying to figure those things out. And we're trying to teach that to the kids that we work with. Like, I would say this, you're going to go and you're going to have a tournament, you win a championship. And then you're going to, amazingly, the next week, you might turn around, you might go 0-4. You might lose every single game. Do you quit? You not come back? Because there are kids that do that. Do you not come back because, well, what changed from what? Well, maybe you played better teams. Maybe you didn't have as good a day. It's important to understand.
A lot of intangibles.
Right. There's a lot of intangibles, but are you working towards a thing that improving yourself, being the best that you could be, doing the right things. And then in the end, I think you have a better chance. Like, no one can guarantee you success, but it gives you a much better chance at success.
Opportunities, right? And opportunities.
Success, right? You know, not just
and I think, and Dave, you hit on it a bunch of times, right? We talk about it all the time. It's football is different. Okay. It's the ultimate team sport. 11 guys have to do their job at a high level to be for anyone to be successful. You have 5 guys on the offensive line that nobody knows who they are unless they do something wrong. There's a star. You need to fill and this is why I think Belichick and those your job mentality of everybody can contribute, and all of those contributions add up to a high level of success. And that's unlike any other sport. You cannot be successful in football unless everybody does their part, and every part is equally important, but not as important every spot. It's, you know what I mean? So you still have that sense of individuality, but at the end of the day, it comes down to 11 guys. Everybody's got to do their 1/11th. It was the greatest thing I ever heard when I worked for Coach Toll at Don Bosco, was everybody's got to do their 1/11th. And when we do that, we'll be successful. And that's really hard in an era where the name on the back of the jersey means more to a lot of these kids than the name on the front of the jersey. And it's all about me, my next NIL, my money here. How come nobody's talking to me? I should be recruited. Well, when we win, everybody has a more opportunity because all the eyes are really on you guys. So how about we all be successful? And I try and tell my guys, because I still coach high school, like, you are going to never experience anything like this in your life. And this particular sport ends for most people at when you finish your senior year. I said, it's why when you look around this fence, there's guys wearing their varsity jacket from 1975 and all of these other years, right? And they're still all at these games because football ends. You don't play in a men's softball league. You don't go get to play Saturday morning basketball in a men's league. Football is over for most people. So this is a really, really different sport than anything. And I just try and get that across to my guys. Even if you play in college, it's not going to be the same as your high school locker room. It's just not. And you know, it's really hard to tell those guys that this era, it's hard for them to see that vision of team, because they don't know what it's like to play a role and be successful, right? Or to cheer on their teammate. Like, if all of us are doing good, like I want, and I think I had like a breakthrough with this freshman group. You know, the incoming 8th graders were working out last night because we twice a week as young kids to learn the weight room. And a lot of the guys that are freshmen now wanted to be there to help them because they understand I'm only going to be as good as that class that's behind me. And I was shocked because it's a rare, like, I haven't seen it in a long time, but it was really nice to see that those guys get that part of it, and that being teammates are huge. It's huge.
Yeah, you know, Dave touched on something earlier, and it's just so true, and it resonated with me on a play that I made in a game, and I hate to talk about, you know, things that I did, but it impacted so many people. And you talked about you can learn more in a loss than really you can in a win. You know, you can when you get kicked in the teeth and things aren't going real well, that's really when your true character comes out. Because everybody can be a high character person when things are going great and you're the man, right? It's easy to wake up and, you know, but then it starts to become self-image and stuff of that nature, which you guys have touched on as well. Well, you know, experiencing the ultimate loss 5 times, okay, losing the Super Bowl 5 times. And one of them was Super Bowl 27. And in that game, I was fortunate to make a play that I didn't think any impact on this play would be what it is today, or for the last 30 some years. I was just doing my job because that's the way I was raised. That's not a switch you can turn on and off. You are, or you're not. You can't, you know, I always say this, and Marv Levy used to say this too, that in every game that you play, at some point in time, your character is going to be revealed, good or bad. because you have to make split-second decisions. And when you make split-second decisions, that's your true character. That's really what comes out. When you have time to think about it, 5 minutes, 1 minute, an hour, a day, then most of us good-natured people are going to probably make the right decision. But when you have to react to something, that's your true character. And obviously I'm talking about Super Bowl 27 when I ran down Leon Lett. But here's kind of the inside story with this. And this is why it resonated when you said that, Dave, is an hour before the game, when I grew up as a kid, literally playing in a Super Bowl was a dream. I'm a 10-year-old kid playing in the backyard, and it's the 70s. And there's Fred Blitnikoff and Cliff Branch and Kenny Stabler playing in Pasadena in the Super Bowl. And that was a dream of mine. And here it is. I'm living my dream. How many people can actually say they're actually living their dream? And an hour before that game, I went out, as I always do. I always pray before every game. But this one resonated like no other prayer, unlike, a few in my life. And my prayer was very simple. I said, Lord, let me glorify your name more than any other time in my life. Today is the ultimate stage of sports. I don't want this to be about me. I want this to be about you. And when I got done, here comes my human nature. Those selfish thoughts came into my head thinking, woo, man, I'm going to score the winning touchdown, man. There's no doubt I'm going to make this one-handed stab in the back of the end zone like J.J. Jefferson did. That's going to be me, right? I'm going to do this. No, God gave me Leon Lett in a 52-17 blowout victory for the Dallas Cowboys. And he gave me Leon Lett. And here's the important things that I want to really teach kids out there, young adults that are playing sports or just in life, okay, is things aren't always going to go your way. But when they don't, how you react to it, okay, is going to be ultimately who you become as a person. And so if I would have scored the touchdown that would have won the Super Bowl for the Buffalo Bills, how great that would have been, it would have never had the impact that the Leon Lett running him down in the Super Bowl. Why? Because I do a lot of public speaking, and I enjoy that. I don't know why people want to listen to me, but I get the opportunity to do these things, right? Because I played the NFL. Who cares? But people are willing to listen. But how many in that audience can relate to making a one-hand stab in the back of the end zone to win a Super Bowl? Nobody. But how many people can relate to never giving up? Everybody. And whoever my audience is, be it young kids or high school kids or college kids or dads at a men's conference or dads with their sons at a church event or whatever, or a business, that I just spoke at State Farm just not too recently, something like that. It impacts everybody. And the message is clearly do everything you can, just like you were just saying, Dave, do everything that you can, train really hard. And if you don't win it all, guess what? You can live with that. Correct. You can live with that. If you don't give it you all, and you really know down deep inside, if you don't, your teammates probably know, your coach probably knows, but you're going to know. You can't live with that. And then you come up with, I always say, when people ask me why I made that play, I say, my dad.
Yep.
That's awesome. How he raised me. Okay. And when kids don't make it in life, they always say two words. You know what those two words are? I wish. As soon as you say, I wish, okay, I have two more words for you. Too late. Okay. So why put yourself in that category? I talk like this at some of my recruiting deals. And I was talking like this in my office one time, and I was talking to the kid and impacting him. And the dad kind of says, Coach, don't take this wrong, but can I interrupt for a second? He goes, aren't you kind of building pipe dreams in young men? And I looked at him and I said, sir, don't take this wrong. I said, I'm glad you weren't my dad. And he goes, and I said, because my dad would have never said that. My dad would have said, son, go be the best that you can be. You don't have to be the best. Be the best that you can be. And then every time, son, I promise you, every game you play, you can live with the result. And you know what?
Yeah.
He was right. I got no regrets. I got regrets in life. But when it comes to sports, I got no regrets. I mean, I did everything I could to get it out of this body. I wasn't talented enough. I just outworked and outlasted other guys that were better than me. And I'm a true testament to young adults that, golly, if Don Beebe can do it, why can't I? Right? Yeah, exactly. Why not? Why not you?
Coach, I'm not gonna lie. Like you were that for me, right? Because I saw a guy that was similar in character, stature, right? Like the whole kind of gamut. So coming up, watching you make those, like, quote unquote hustle plays and all those things kind of for me was like, look, if this guy can do it at this level, I'm not saying I can't, but it was at a young age. I needed something that was similar to who I was. Hey, if he does it, I got a shot, right? Wayne Corbett, same type of gig, right? Yep. Like, that's what I looked at, and it was, okay, he's a receiver, but he also does this stuff. Maybe I should get focused on some of this stuff, right? And look, that was what was instilled in me from my father was, play special teams, work hard, do all those things, but control the controllables. And those were things I could control. Couldn't control my height, couldn't control my speed. I could work to improve them, right? Yep. I could control my work ethic. And if I focused it towards that, and then even at the end of the day, I knew that it was only an opportunity that was promised. I still had to take care of business on my end, and things needed to happen for that to roll through. But I knew I had a better chance if I just always continuously worked hard and controlled those things.
Yeah. Well,
so I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Derek. I just look at life as, I just know that I'm going to stand in front of God one day. We all are. And he's not going to say, hey, great job, Don, and all the wins and all that stuff and the Super Bowl. I mean, he doesn't care about that. What he does care about is, you know what, I brought this kid to you in 2025. What'd you do with him? What'd you do with him? And that doesn't haunt me. That drives me. That drives me as a coach, that it's how this kid comes into your life and then leaves your life, because kids come and go all the time in the businesses that we are in and doing.
Right.
If you don't impact that kid somehow, and for me, it's spiritually. For others, it might be some other way. I'm gonna answer for that, and I just don't want to. I don't want to ever lose that deal. I think the greatest quality that every leader that I've been around, that were great leaders, starting with my own father, is humility. One word: humility. Okay, if you think you have all the answers, you're not a leader.
Absolutely. I think one of the things for me that was really interesting about what you talked about with that play is that when you were in the midst of that play and you were chasing him down, it wasn't something that you were this was just how you lived. That's how you lived. So you made that play, and what makes it so inspirational was not just that you chased him down and you gave your best, and that, it was a never give up play, which it obviously was. But that's how you lived as a person. And that's what I think resonates the most. Like, when you see that play is a culmination of how Don Beebe approached the sport of football and how he lived his life. And that play was a result of how you approached it. And of course, it's obviously one of the most famous plays now in the NFL history. And I always say that, like, it was one of those things where Leon Lett probably struggled with a lot of the fact that that some of those things happened to him. It had zero to do with but it was the fact that you had your approach. It had nothing to do with him. It had to do with your approach to everything. And I think that's such resonance. There are two plays, honestly, that I think about in the history of football. That play that you had as one of them, and in college football, and the team actually, I think, ended up winning the national championship. But George Teague, where he walked down I think it was Lamar Thomas from Miami, and it was a short touchdown. He walked him down, pulled the ball out, and they end up getting obviously getting the ball. And it kind of changed the whole entire game. And I would say, like, when people were like, whoa, George Teague knocked the play where George Teague knocked off Terrell Owens from the 50-yard line, right? And like I said, well, I'm not surprised by that when he was a pro, because he was also the same guy that walked down the Miami receiver and pulled the ball out. And me and George Teague got to know each other from the camps for many years when his kids were coming through, and he was I might still be a high school coach. That was his character. Like, when I would talk to him, that's who he was. Like, that was kind of how he lived, and he tried to instill that in the kids he coached. So I don't think it's, it's not a coincidence that play you made happen. It was how you lived your life, and your parents obviously are a huge part of it. I think that's a big part to me today, and Derek touched on it too. Parents and approaching your kids and having those conversations. The first thing I always try before I go in and say to my son after a game or anything like that, hey, we could have did this, or we could have. The first thing I always ask is, did you do your best?
Yeah.
Did you do your best? Did you enjoy the game?
Yeah.
And before we do it, because if he lost, he might be upset, or all these other things can happen, or he maybe made a mistake on this. I could correct that, after that. But if I go in corrections first, it's going to be a battle anyway when you go in corrections, right? No matter what, especially with kids. Okay. They have to learn how to handle those things. But the first thing is, and now he's gotten to a habit now, because it started when he was real young. Now he got in the habit now that if I make a mistake, like if I come in upset, as a parent can make mistakes and they're thinking about something you did wrong. And he says, the first thing he'll say to me, if I don't go in and ask did you do your best? He said, I did my best. He says it to me now because it's his way of saying, before we talk about any of this stuff, I want you to know I did my very best. That's what you've been trying to teach me to do. Do my best.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no question about it. And then he can live with the result.
And he can live with the result. You can talk about what you can improve. You can talk about all that stuff. But he wants you to know, and that's what we're looking to get out of, not just, and it goes to academics. Like when you get a bad grade, okay?
Yep.
Did you do your best?
Yep. On
this test? Did you concentrate? And that sometimes that's an even harder conversation in sports, because you kind of come out of there and you kind of feel, woof, I'm whooped. I gave everything I had, right? You can kind of physically feel that. But sometimes in school, they have to think about it. Did I really do my best? Or did I not really want to be there? And I kind of whipped through that test because I didn't want to, be there. And that happens a lot more with school, because kids who like sports are more likely to want to gravitate towards that. But school isn't always something that the kid wants to, but it's a necessary thing. It's the most important thing, being able to do great in school, giving your best in school. And sometimes it's not easy, because I know for boys, at least, it's very hard for boys to sit down in a chair and stay there and not move. And so, I have some issues with how kind of we teach boys, not necessarily. Girls are a little different in how they handle things, but with boys, like having them sit still so much. But besides all of that, what are you doing? And if you didn't, well, then we need to be paying attention better in class, or we need to. And those are all things that are really, really important, because ultimately you're going to have lots of failures in life, lots and lots of failures, lots and lots of, hopefully lots of successes. But you remember the failures. And if you can learn,
absolutely.
If you can learn the lessons from your failures, you have a chance.
Yeah.
Like I can tell you, I don't remember, in high school, I can't even remember many. I scored a lot of touchdowns in high school. I don't really remember too many of them, to be honest. I mean, it's crazy that I remember when I messed up. Like in college, I played at UConn, made a lot of plays. If it wasn't for video, I probably wouldn't remember some of my good plays. But I remember the ones I messed up. I don't need to see that video, right? So how did I handle? How do you handle those things, and then how do you get your mind to improve yourself from that point forward? That's the only thing we could do. And I think your point about coming before God, like, did you do the best you could for this kid when he came in front of you? Did you do?
Yep.
We all make mistakes, but are you doing this a lot more on the regular than you are not?
Barner research came out with a poll. This is some time ago now. And they asked them to teenage kids, boys specifically, and whose opinion that matters the most to you, that you respect the most, that you listen to the most?
Great question.
76% were dads. And as we know in polls, that's really high. Number 2 on the list was mom, believe it or not. And so it clearly, parents don't understand how important what they say to their kids are extremely important. Okay. And to the point, I had 3 girls and I had 1 boy, Chad. And I remember when Chad was born and he was growing up, and I could tell right away he was very gifted athletically. Okay. And I already knew that he was already going to have enough pressure on him to play football.
Damn right.
Right. So we never really talked football much. I should say my career. Matter of fact, to this day, you know how many games we've watched of me playing in the NFL games? 0. We've never watched a game, okay, of what Dad did in high school, collegiately or professionally. Not that, it just wasn't important. But I'll never forget this conversation with him. He came to speed camps, but I wasn't like had a horse whip out and saying, "Hey, you're going to class today. Let's go."
And we see some of it.
Yeah, the greatest. That's right, because the greatest quality as a parent that you can give your kid is one thing: your time. You got to give your kid your time, okay? But now we've gone off the rails the other way with this. I mean, parents now are doing everything for their kid, and it's all about time, and it's all about. And why they do that is they're living vicariously through their kid because they didn't get it, they didn't earn it, and they're going to make darn sure Susie and Johnny are going to get it. And that's I just wrote I hate to plug this, but I just wrote a devotional called In His Image. It's for dads. It's Dad's devotional. I share stories like this that I went through as a son, and then as a father to my son, especially, and to my daughters as well, of how do you raise kids in a culture that's teaching them exactly the opposite of what we want them to learn. And, for me, it's biblical, right? We know that. Okay. I'm a man of faith. Okay. But so I wrote these in a devotional book. And one of the stories was I was talking to Chad, my son, and it was after his freshman year in high school. And I asked him, first time I've ever asked him this, I said, "Hey, so what do you want to do when high school's over?" He goes, "Well, Dad, I want to play football." He was 5'1", 107 as a freshman. In my mind, I'm thinking this dude's going to get killed, right? I mean, that was my mind, but I never said this. I never related this a lot. I never even allowed him to see that in me. I said, "Oh, great." I said, "At what level do you want to play?" He goes, "Dad, I would like to play in the biggest stadiums possible." I said, "Oh, so you want to play Division I football?" He goes, "Yeah, I do." And I said, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh boy. I said, "Okay." I said, "I'll tell you what, if this is what you really, really want," I said, "your father will dedicate himself to helping you achieve that. Okay. That means we're going to train year round because you're not going to be LeBron James in hallways that can play 3 sports and then go on to Division I. Okay. It's not going to happen. So we got to specialize in certain things, route running, and understand how to do this and be more explosive. And so we're going to train year round." I said, "But let me paint 2 pictures for you. Number one, your freshman basketball team's pretty good. You know what? One day they might be downstate and you're a senior and you're sitting in the stands and your buddies are out there playing hoops. You going to be okay with that?" He said, "Absolutely, Dad." He goes, and so my kid knew what he wanted. I said, "Number 2, I said, yeah, I'll train you, but I'm not going to push you. I'm not going to set the alarm and wake you up. You're going to wake me up and we're going to go early." And I said, if you don't wake me up, I'm sleeping. Okay. If I'm not going to push you at all, when we get to the workout, okay, I'll push you, motivate you and stuff like this, but this is your life, son. This isn't not mine. Okay. This is yours. I'm just here to support it. Okay. And boy, this is where I think a lot of dads especially miss the calling as a parent. They want it more than the kid wants it.
Oh,
and
gosh.
If the kid doesn't want it, move on to something else. Find out what everybody's gifted. All of us have gifts. Find out what they are and then go earn something in life, whatever that is. If it's playing the trumpet, I don't care.
Yep.
Whatever it is. Okay.
Yep.
Whatever you're gifted at, enhance that and become the best that you can be. Doesn't mean you have to be the best. Just be the best that you can be. Well, my son was very fortunate, obviously, to play 4 years with the Minnesota Vikings. And here's the end of the story. Is 11 of those 12 years that he played from sophomore year of high school to his 4th year with the Vikings, 11 of the 12 were reconstructive season-ending injury. 3 of his 4 years of the Vikings were on IR with 2 completely separated ankles, 2 of the deals, and a torn hamstring, the other one. And 11 of those 12 years, he was completely devastated. I've never seen anybody in all the world of sports, and not just because he's my kid. I witnessed it firsthand. Every day, that day after that injury, he'd pick himself up and he'd go get it again. Not one time did I ever call a college recruiter to get him a scholarship. Not one time did I ever call an NFL guy is people always think that this is the case just because he's my kid, he's going to play. Do you actually think they care what I think? No, they don't.
Right.
They don't.
Right.
Okay.
Dave, didn't we just have this conversation? We just had this. We literally just had this conversation about even Dave doing what he did, having played at UConn in all of his years, right? Dave, I think it was like, what'd you say? Two guys, two kids
that I recommended.
That he recommended.
I probably recommended hundreds.
Yeah. And listen, as a high school coach, and I think I've built a great network working with Dave and just being for where I've played, whatever. When those parents come to me and says, well, don't you know somebody? Yeah. I do. But me, that doesn't mean shit. Like, no offense, don't mean shit. It might get you in the door and maybe a better shot, right? It'll get you like, okay, but what do we like? That's not the end all be all, guys. Right, like you still have to now go and perform.
That's
and
right.
Do it. And it's
and the only reason he got to Minnesota, okay, and here's, I mean, again, I hate to use my son, but it's such a great story, is that the only reason he got to Minnesota is because every year at Northern Illinois, he would pick himself up after a season-ending injury 5 years in a row, okay? He had a season-ending injury. And the Minnesota Vikings scout calls the head of strength and conditioning at Northern Illinois because they were roommates in college. So he called them and he said, hey, is there anybody that we missed at Northern? And I won't say his name, but he said Chad Beebe. And the guy said, the scout said, well, he's hurt. I mean, he's hurt every year at NIU. He says, he goes, trust me, bring him into camp. This kid can play, but more importantly, every time he's devastated, man, he gets better. He comes back better because that's the way he was raised. Okay, just so you know, that's not a switch you can turn on and off. It's your character. Well, they bring him into camp, okay, in a 3-day camp, which nobody ever makes these 3-day camps that they're just bringing in kids off the street. None of the Minnesota Viking guys are there. Well, at the end of the 3rd day, Zimmer says, hey, we want you to spend an extra day. We wanted to put you through some medical things and see if you're able to play. Well, he gets an invite to the camp. That's a miracle. Now he gets into camp at Minnesota Vikings in 2018, I believe it was, his rookie year. And who does he land up beating out to make the active roster to play? Oh, Laquan Treadwell. Laquan Treadwell, you could argue, is the greatest wide receiver in Illinois history. Okay, he takes his Crete Moni team to the state title and wins it on a one-man band. Then he goes to Ole Miss, SEC, breaks all their records. He's a first-round pick of the Minnesota Vikings, and this is his 4th year, and that's who Chad beat out to make the active roster? How's that happen? Outwork, outlast. When you do that and you have that mentality, good things always happen. It might not be in your time, but eventually, if you have that attitude, eventually that time's coming. But we always give up too quick because we want it now. We're such a microwave society. We want it now.
Right.
Okay?
That's what I said. That's what I've been saying.
Right. And the way you grow is go through adversity. That's how you grow. Okay. And good things always happen to people that just wake up every single day. And this is me, guys. I'm just telling you, I can't remember the last day in my life that I woke up and I said to myself, oh crap, I got to go to work. I love going to work. I loved my job. I loved it as a player. I love it as a coach. I loved House of Speed. I've loved everything that I've done in life. I don't have an alarm. I don't need an alarm. What's an alarm? I get up in the morning and I'm ready to go. Okay. And that is how I want to not just train my 4 children. That's the way I was trained by my father, who worked 3 jobs and got us everything we needed, not wanted, needed. Okay. And it's just something that I love at this level, going back to that. And with this, that's why we do what we do, guys. If it's about us, get out. It's got to be about them and our kids that we're coaching and training.
Well, no doubt about it. I think somehow I lost Derek here. Absolutely, no doubt. It's been unbelievable having you on. The thought process of really giving your best for everything you do and figuring that out and getting people, parents are so important to that. I think we're all people now, after years and years of seeing how the culture had changed to not having, trying to have parents as not being the most sorry, Derek, some happened. I might have actually clicked something. I don't know. Sorry
about that.
but parents are so important. And I remember in like, when in the 90s and 2000s where they were trying to like make it like a thing where parents weren't as needed, and it was such a mistake. And we're now knowing, right, some of the ramifications of those things. But people now really are starting to understand again, I think, that parents are very important, the mom and dad, to being able to help the child succeed. And then helping parents to understand the right way to approach things. Because, one of the nice things about how it was when you grew up and I grew up was you didn't have to worry about all these extra distractions. There are lots of great things about social media and great things about, being able to do YouTube and all that kind of stuff. But then there's also negatives, right, for young kids, where they don't know when they're watching a screen that it's bad for them to watch it too long. So that's why parents are so important. Parents are so critical because they have to be able to interject and be able to teach these lessons. And so I can't thank you enough for coming on. It's great reconnecting, and what you're doing is unbelievable. I hope what you're doing spreads,
God's work.
Yes, to more coaches, so they understand the importance of approaching it that way. I can't wish you anything more, but just a continued great success that you're having, and you're an example for everybody. Every time that video comes on, it's inspirational every single time. I mean, my son's seen it a million times. Like he could tell you it. He's 9 years old. He's probably seen it 50 times because he watches the NFL Network probably all the time too, and it always comes on. But it's such an inspirational thing, and I think of those things more of as players are so much more impactful. I mean, than obviously scoring touchdowns is great, and those things are great things, and those are exciting moments, and those are inspirational in their own right. But when you're trying to teach character, how you approach things, that's really what it's about.
It is. Well, I appreciate it. It's great getting to see you guys again too, especially you, Dave. And I also appreciate what you guys do. Just keep doing your work. Okay. And I'm honored that I got to be on your show today.
Thanks so much. It's great seeing you, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Dave. We'll see you. Right. Thanks, Derek.
Thanks, Coach. Take care, man.
All right.
Appreciate it.